A couple just house rules. Probably the only like really stringent one that we always talk about that I did mention to the speakers ahead of time as well is we try to avoid self-promotion or pitching. It's meant to be kind of a community-based educational session for all of the speakers and the attendees, and so we don't want anyone to feel like they're kind of getting a demo in the middle. And if you do want to connect with people, which we highly encourage after the event, just trying to let them know that you might be reaching out over LinkedIn or something like that, just so that we're all kind of being respectful of our space. We are not, oh, we are recording. I'm sorry. We are recording. I will adjust the slides later.
Kat, is it okay if we record? Oh, she's gonna leave?
No, as soon as I said she needs to ask questions.
Yeah, sorry, agreed.
All right. Cool.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna scooch a little bit. So if you are curious to stay connected with the Denver chapter, we do virtual events as well. So if you're out of town, which some of you may be, feel free to join. You can join virtually. We also do Ask Me Anythings or AMAs. Those also have a lot of great engagement, and it's a nice way to connect in the middle of the workday, you know, over lunch or something. So feel free to sign up. You can access the Denver chapter, and then you'll get emails about our events. So we are launching, just for everyone's anyone's knowledge, we are launching a new type of Marketo User Group that's more of a foundational thing. So if you have anyone on your team or in your network that is sort of early stage, like brand new to Marketo and really wants to get up to speed on the basics and the foundations, a lot of times these user groups don't cater to some of those. So this is a great way for some of those folks to kind of learn the ropes and also feel comfortable asking what may seem like a basic question, but it's probably really important. And yeah. Couple other things. So we do have the new email designer. There's going to be bi-weekly office hours. And a lot of the, yeah, you can register using these, and these are really great ways. Again, resources, they're free, they're included in your Marketo subscription. So great ways to kind of stay up to date on all of the new tools and tips and tricks that Marketo Engage is offering. I would be remiss to, thank you, to not mention that there is the Adobe Champion Program application that's open right now. It closes on Tuesday next week. Tuesday? Or,
yeah.
Tuesday next week. So if you are interested, definitely apply. Encourage everyone to apply. Sarah and I are also champions this year. I think Sarah's are you 2 or 3 time?
Yeah.
2. Okay. 2-time champion. So if you also have questions, or if someone on your team has questions, there's still time. You can feel free to reach out to us or anyone in the champion program and just kind of ask questions and see what it's about. But it's a great way to connect. We have some new items in Experience Week, personalized homepage, perspectives, and video playlists. So definitely check those out when you get a chance. And then this year we're having Skill Exchange is going to have a multi-day, multi-solution digital experience. So there's going to be 5 Adobe solutions that are included in that. Registration is going to open in early July. And these are, again, really great resources, tools, feature really wonderful speakers, very unique use cases, and then also some, just some like best practices, tips, tricks from kind of the experts. So definitely check these out if you can.
That's not just Denver.
This is, yeah,
Virtual. Okay. That's cool.
And then another very exciting announcement. So Adobe is launching an AEP user group as well. So if you know anyone that is interested in launching this, I know AEP is kind of fast growing and becoming a very sought after tool, collection of tools. So definitely, if you know anyone that's interested, this is a great way of getting involved more into Adobe programs. I know from my experience, and Sarah and Zach could probably back this up too, is being a part of the Marketo User Group or just any user group in general is just, it's a great community. It's a great way to even boost your application if you're considering champion program applications, things like that. So definitely check it out or let people know. We'll breeze through the user events. These are just kind of there if you need them. But yeah, feel free to check this out after if you are catching the recording. And without further ado, we will get to our featured session topic. So what I was thinking is we could do intros, depending on the group size. Sometimes it's hard to do around the horn, but I think we can. So I think it would be good for everyone to just kind of meet and greet. So I will kick us off and then we can go this way. I'm Shivani. Everyone knows me here. So one of the Marketo User Group leaders. I run Montech Solutions and Architecture at Cloudflare. And maybe we could do a fun fact. Fun fact. I have been skydiving and it was really fun. And now looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like, it's like I was 18 and looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? So things change as we get older.
I'm Zach. I do go-to-market data management at Sprout Social. And a fun fact about me is I play on 2 hockey teams.
I'm Sarah Ryan, Senior Director of Marketing Technology and Operations at Pluralsight. Fun fact is I just discovered I own 60 different colors of nail polish.
Oh my
Until this week, I have not worn any in about 4 years. So yeah, I have 60 of them.
That's look great.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
fun fact.
Actually, 5 different shades. Because that's what you get when you have 60 of them. You get 5 different teal colored shades if you
That's
wear into
hilarious.
that. So
I
yeah,
love it.
okay.
I can't beat that. I have nothing fun going on.
If 61, then you would be, yeah.
So I'm 61. I'm Frannie Danzinger, VP Sales with Integrate. So helping to bring this all together today. I really have no fun facts right now. I'll tell you my fun fact of the day, which it's just of today. So I'm obviously in sales and have been for many, many years. And my youngest daughter, who's 24, is in her first year of sales. And the company she works for, there were her senior marketing executives at the Gartner event that I've been at for the past couple of days. So my kid introduced me to her marketing leaders and I met with them today. And it was so fun for me to like see the whole world come together. So that was my fun fact of the day, other than the sob situation.
I'm Nathan Booth. I'm a marketing operations manager at AlphaSense. And so my fun fact, I'm visiting Europe for the first time this summer. I'm going to Barcelona. So if you've ever been there, let me know
Yeah.
some things that you would recommend. Yeah, give us something to talk about later.
Cool. Justin Eisner. I work with Frannie at Integrate. I run our solutions consulting group and our technical account managers. So very in the weeds. At one point, I was a Marketo certified expert. So, I can talk for the most part, although I'm sure it's since expired. It's been a while. I'm local in Denver as well. So I'm in town. And yeah, my fun fact, I just kind of saw something about this last night. It was very similar to mine, so I'll use it. But I have 7 screws on a plate in my right ankle. And I was watching everyone watches Welcome to Wrexham, one of the more recent episodes, the guy who broke his leg, and they show the x-ray, and it is he broke the exact bone, the exact spot, and his x-ray that popped up looks exactly like mine. And so it reminded me of it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a fun fact. I never got mine removed, so all that hardware is still in my leg. Yeah. On-prem. On-prem, exactly. Definitely not in the cloud.
We're gonna talk about that later.
Catherine, before we jump.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. I guess if you can see me, hi. I'm Catherine Roberts. I am an Adobe strategist with Marketo at Merge, which is in downtown Denver. And my fun fact is that I'm trying to visit all 50 states, and I only have 3 left. And it is Oregon, North Dakota, and Michigan. So yeah.
I'm Tisha. I go by Tish. I work at Gates. I am their lone marketing ops person for a company that's 115 years old. That's pretty astonishing. But I'm having a great time, enjoying life and doing a lot of integrations at the moment. I am local, obviously, in Denver. Our office and headquarters is right up the street. And fun fact, I travel at least once a month. Most recently to Ireland with my little old lady. She just retired. And if you ever take your parents traveling, I have tips for you. She's 70. So if your parents are 65 and older, I specifically have tips for you.
Someone at the door? I thought I heard the door.
I think they were leaving.
Oh, okay, okay. Just want to make sure.
Very good.
Oh, yes, you're sorry. Yeah.
My name's Aaron Karpaty. I work at Captello. Captello is a demand gen product across live events. And I would say the fun fact for me is that I'm addicted to tattoos. I just hide it really well. And so I can, don't judge a book by its cover.
How many do you have?
My arms are done, about all of my chest. And it took me a while to get used to like going to events and wearing short sleeves. And it's not as big a deal now, but I still like to dress up and look professional. So that's a fun fact.
Very cool.
Hey everyone, I'm Steve Armenti. I was in marketing for 16 years and left to start my own company. Now, let's see, fun fact. This is what I always use with like two truths and a lie, if you ever played that game. So I'll give you one of the truths that I use. On my dad's mother's side, there's a connection to Val Kilmer, the actor Batman. Somewhere through one of those ancestry reports, it was like, you're related to Val Kilmer.
Wow.
Don't know the extent of it, but I like to, emphasize that, yeah, I'm related to Val Kilmer, Batman.
Right.
Sweet.
Hi, Andrea Martucci. I'm at Digital Realty, which is a data center company, and I live in Boston. I do global content and campaigns at Digital Realty. So I work with the team that are the heaviest Marketo users, but do a lot with Marketo. And my fun fact is that I run a podcast and have run it for almost 6 years about romance novels.
Wow.
Oh, that's a fun fact.
My daughter wants to be you.
If I have your permission, I would love to connect with your daughter.
She wants to be an author writing romance books. I'm telling you.
Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Hall. I'm actually an account director at Demand Base, and I'm here to meet my customer, Claire. So thought it was a great opportunity. I'm actually coming in from California, was here for Gartner, and been at Demand Base for about 5 years, supporting our customers on the account director side. So interested in the topic and excited to be here.
Nice. Hello, I'm the lone Adobe person here today, Brad Bedford. I actually run the global Marketo User Group program. So we have 81 of these chapters all around the world. But this one holds a special place in my heart because this is my office and this is where Marketo's headquarters was while Steve was our fearless leader for a long time. Win Shivani worked here with us as well. And my interesting fact is I'm a split sports team fanatic. So I'm from Minnesota, but I've lived in Denver for 11 years now. So Vikings and Wild are my teams, but I have been a traitor and I have now taken on the Nuggets, the Rockies, unfortunately, and the Rapids. So that's my interesting fact.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you everyone for indulging. And I think we can just go ahead and get started. We can do some questions that we kind of prepped, but again, free flow conversation. If you feel like you have something to say or something that sparks a question, Catherine, just feel free to jump in. So I think we'll start with maybe just kind of a overarching topic of how you would define database health in today's marketing ecosystem. I think Steve, you had mentioned this one might.
It sounded like a
so if
fun
you
one.
want to kick us off,
Yeah, sure.
and then we can.
That could go the whole meeting.
I know. I'd share a perspective, but I'd love to hear from others. I think actually like my response to this was like, it depends, right? Like, I feel like database health is so uniquely defined by the use case of the data or like what the data is supporting, right? So if you're just talking like generally what's the health of the CRM, sure, that makes sense. But if you have a very unique go-to-market approach or unique product stack or whatnot, like whatever the data is coming from, then health is defined differently. And, I like to think of it, like I work in a lot of ABM now, right? So like database health to me is in layers of, the accounts that exist in the database, the people that exist within those accounts, and then really every other signal you could imagine that you could map to those two things. But again, I would love to hear from others of like, what does this mean today?
I'm going to give you an example because this gave me pause this week. So at Integrate, we have 2 companies under our private equity, and we split those companies about 1.5 years ago. And while we split them to the outside world, all the tech hadn't actually been split. We're going through that right now. So I had our leaders who are working in our systems, Marketo, Salesforce, come to us, to our sales team, to say, hey, we have great news. Here's what we've done. We've gone through the entire database. We've run it through Integrate. And so we now know that this percentage of your contacts and leads that are in your databases are valid and marketable. And that's what we've moved over to our new instances. Okay, great. So we have healthy data. And then I freaked out and I said, well, this other portion of our data, while it might not be marketable right now, there's so much history in that data. We can't leave it behind. We have to bring it in knowing it's not marketable. It's not technically a healthy database, but it's very important for, future cycles, history, etc. And so there's like a huge debate, which I'd love anyone's opinion on, because I'm of the mindset of we have to increase the size of our database to account for data that is not marketable, but is important to the history of being able to, do things in the future. So would love anyone's opinions on that, because this is a live debate right now at Integrate. Yeah.
I'm going through a compliance discussion and, establishing those relationships. I'm pretty new to Gates,
Okay.
but not new to marketing ops. And I think the easiest win you can do is to make a case for the unmarketable data is talk about compliance and have that discussion. Because you can't prohibit records from flowing back into your system, right, that are unmarketable unless you have that context, unless they're on a block list, or, a lot of people export those to, some kind of receptacle, some sort of zip file, but that's not of use to you because your system can't listen to see if there's a duplicate that comes in that matches them.
Right.
So easily win that
Yeah, that's a good
compliance. Yeah.
that angle.
With all this in like signaling and intent stuff, I wonder if you could still have that look at that old data, and if signals come in, then it changes to marketable.
Yeah, I mean, but if that data didn't exist, it would come in as a new record.
Yeah.
And they also did not realize that they needed to migrate tasks and activities in Salesforce. And I kind of was like, WTF, like we need that. And like mission critical to what I do in my function as sales. So I think that made sense. So, in that case, if nothing existed and there was no trail, it would be net new, which I think is even more harmful than not knowing that there was history. Like if I talked to someone 2 years ago and they weren't ready to buy, but now all of a sudden they come inbound and they're interested, I want to know that history. So I don't think I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong.
Don't tattle on me, Jeff.
Yeah, I couldn't. So we're having discussions internally about who we can delete, right? So very, very similar thing,
Right.
but not from a migration standpoint. If the average tenure at a B2B tech company, if we're using that, for example, is less than 3 years, is that person going to come back to you after 3 years? Or will they be somewhere else and not expect you to have that history?
Right. So if they, I agree, the tenure is short.
Yeah.
And has gotten shorter, but the history of that person and what happened at that company is important. So I would not want to delete them. But then you run into a problem of, the volume that you have in your database, and you have to continuously increase volume to account for bad data. I don't want to say it's bad data, not marketable data. And those two aren't equal.
Yeah.
Like not marketable does not equal bad.
Yeah.
Bad data it's bad data. Right?
Do you have any process in place for like finding where past champions may be at a new company? So
Sort of.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if like you want to run that playbook,
Yeah.
you need this
Yeah.
data, which I think you actually have a competitive advantage against the companies that offer like champion tracking, right? Because they're just scraping the website and just getting that, you have the actual conversation history with
Right,
that person, what
right.
they did at that job,
Right.
which is unique.
And when there's turnover at our own company, salespeople move on, maybe someone else was having a conversation with someone that I know nothing about, but now they're no longer here. And so now it's for me to look after. I want to know that there's history there.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
very interesting.
I think a way I've handled it, because I've done this at a few different companies, is if it's associated or it's been associated to an opportunity, I want to keep it. If it's not, I'm also personally a bit of a minimalist, so I want to delete everything and really on it. But yeah, if it's has some previous sales process involved, I think it's worth keeping. But if not, I think
Which-
that allows you to delete the majority too.
Which becomes a whole other conversation, which we have been having. Again, it's a Salesforce conversation. So in order for that to be true, there has to be a process in place where people are associated to opportunities.
Yes.
And if that process has not been in place for a certain period of time, then that can't be true.
Yeah.
So I agree, that would have been an easy
Yeah.
solution.
Well,
Not possible.
I think, I mean, what you're talking about, Franny, with the history is about context, which I think in the topic of database health, from my perspective as somebody who is more on the like segmentation and campaign side, thinking about how to use the data, it's not enough to have the data be there and be marketable. It's understanding contextually how to communicate with this person and how to segment them. Because if we can't do that, then all of our communication is just so broad
Right.
that it's not going to be relevant. And so, I mean, I think increasingly, you know, what do you call that? When you enrich data enrichment and users adding, and sorry, what's it called? Zero party data, where, I mean, basically your internal teams are adding, I mean, activity tracking is an example of that, or like marking intelligence in a database that then you can leverage for, not even like creepy personalization, but literally segmentation, you know, I mean, because if you can't make meaning of the data, it's meaningless, you know.
Thank you for that. Gives me ammunition
Yeah.
now to go back. I have already stated my case and I got oh, wait a minute, because they were so far along in this process. And I said, it's similar to like go to market, like marketing and sales have to be aligned.
Yeah.
Have to have that conversation. And they were really far down that path before I was like, stop.
Yeah.
So I've allowed the regroup to happen. The decision hasn't been finalized, but we're close.
I'm curious, like who, just everybody, like in this question, right? Figuring this out, like who are the other stakeholders? Like who is that on the other side? Is it
So
IT,
it's-
data? Is it?
On our side, it is our head of marketing
Yeah.
and RevOps.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's RevOps, I'd also have a TAM discussion. Like how will we know what's
Right.
real for our TAM and our forecasting if we don't have the data?
Yeah, because you're saying like the accounts are still real, right? Even if
Yeah.
the
Right.
people move around, you still
Yeah.
have the account
You
data.
want to know what relationships you've exhausted
Yes.
and where else you need to penetrate.
Yes.
Benchmarking, right? Like how do you, or predictive
Where's the white?
modeling, that historical data?
Yeah, like
Well, good stopping point. Oh, sorry, we were conferring on like how many questions. This is great. We should definitely keep talking. I have 7 questions prepped, so if we don't get through all of them, it's not it's not an issue. Like the conversation is best. So I did think this would be a good kind of extension of what we were just talking about with just we all have faced this pressure of driving increased efficiency. And so I was curious to hear from the panelists, how do you see brands kind of balance that quality versus quantity, especially when it comes to lead acquisition and enrichment? And Steve, you did claim this one, but I do want to hear.
Yeah.
Great.
Funny here from me.
As well.
I just like them all.
I'll start us off here. So, I mean, this is like a constant debate in every conversation is quantity versus quality. And I think marketers are at different levels of maturity. And so you have to know your audience for sure. In my role at Integrate, I definitely talk to some marketers that are really fixated on quantity of leads and MQLs. And I don't want to be judgmental. I want to be curious. I live by that motto. And so I ask a lot of questions. And generally when I get answers, I disagree with that, but so generally when I get answers to those questions, it is because they're feeling pressure from above. And so a lot of those decisions on, I need masses of leads and they're all MQLs and something that most of us probably feel is very old school and not modern marketing and very mature, comes from pressures from the CMO's desk or even beyond that, where they don't really understand the intricacies.
No.
Sorry.
Go.
Oh, okay. So then that's on one side of the equation. And then the other side of the equation, which we see a lot, is marketers really focusing on quality of leads and being able to follow the leads all the way through to revenue and being able to prove that higher quality leads lead to everything else being higher conversions all the way through your funnel, et cetera. Then there's a whole conversation there of relevancy, intent, et cetera. Won't go into that whole soapbox. But yes, I think there's for sure an increase put on marketers, an increased pressure to drive efficiency. But even though that pressure is there, you still have marketers defaulting and retracting to what's comfortable and what's tangible. So, I mean, you guys are in that, I'd love to hear your perspective on that, the pressures you feel. And sometimes I have conversations with our customers who say, I know what the right thing to do is, but if I don't do this, I'm going to lose my job. It's that dramatic. And I will say, okay, well, I'm going to support you in doing the right thing. And if you really think you're going to lose your job over that, we're going to find you a new job. I believe that, truly.
Yeah, probably don't want to be there anyway.
Right. I mean, if you grasp this and you understand like and there's no right or wrong answer, it's a puzzle for sure. But there are more right answers and more wrong answers, especially as it pertains to this subject.
I think to that point, marketing damages its credibility when there's too much quantity and not enough quality, where sales just stops trusting any.
Sure.
And if you don't have a process to process the leads, and if the bad leads are not actually, you're not separating the wheat from the chaff, then that just contributes to dirty data. Nobody trusts anything. Sales adds their own data, and then you can't, whatever marketing did, you can't even track it anyway. Like, yeah, it's a mess. So I mean, personally, particularly for us in the B2B space, selling based on what we sell, like I think we should focus our efforts on quality, both for our relationship with sales, but then also because we know who we're going after, and we should only get those people. We know that we shouldn't be doing certain things, and we need the data to do that.
Here's one other qualifier in all of this is, and I'll say marketing as a whole, obviously there's different functions in the marketing organization, but ultimately what marketing is held accountable for, and more mature marketers are held accountable for revenue in partnership with sales. And when they're held accountable for revenue, that's when really they see the light on quality and how it makes a difference how you go to market. When marketers their KPIs or what they're measured on is volume, is MQLs or whatever acronym you have for that, then if they're going to gravitate to delivering on what they're graded on or what their job is based on. So it really depends on that.
I agree with what you said about the maturity of the marketing team. I think that expands to the orgs as well. And sometimes different industries have different maturity levels, depending who you work with. Working with customers, it's interesting how many of them come in. We're in the space of ABM, right? So the whole idea is efficiency, people buying into the concepts of like accounts, buying groups, penetrating accounts, engagement, things like that. But they still come in and they like revert back to, what's comfortable.
Right.
Or something changes at the executive level and they're like, where's the leads? And it's like, don't you remember the conversation that we had about what ABM was going to do for you? So yeah, it's a constant, in my world, it's a constant struggle sometimes to reinforce those concepts. I mean, I would say at Demand-Based too, like we this year have leaned into different tactics and strategies where we're trying to drive more leads, right? More hand raisers, more engagement. So heavily in events and partnering with, lead generators and providers and stuff. So it's not like we only do, account-based everything and we've completely thrown out, lead generation as a tactic or something that we leverage. But yeah, I hear it all the time. So definitely just reinforcing what you're saying.
So I work with some of the biggest biggest Fortune 500 companies in the world. And what I've been hearing a lot of is, I don't care about leads. I don't care about leads or volumes of leads. Stop saying leads. I don't care about leads. I care about quality discussions and meetings that create an advanced pipeline. Right. And I was hired at the company I worked for about 6 months ago. And when I came on, our BDR team was completely put on like by getting leads. They went to events actually, and it was how many leads can they get? Right. And then I took that away and put meeting goals on them instead of lead goals, because the best next thing of a qualified lead is a meeting. So how do I have a meeting first strategy, right? And I think that really has related into live events these days, pre-booked meetings, current ad hoc meetings, and post meetings. And that's how you're pulling in the quality information, because not only have you qualified them, but you've had a sit down discussion to talk about what matters. And if you can record that conversation and utilize that data, then you're just really digging into the stuff that has the most quality to it. But I think even from a digital aspect, the call to action has always been that it turns into a lead, right? How can in digital marketing we turn that into the call to action is to book a meeting with an expert or book a demo, right? So I've just seen a lot of the biggest companies start focusing more on these quality discussions, they're calling it, right? And our parent company is called Lead Liaison, right? And I hate it, but because all my customers are saying they hate leads, right? But that's why we're turning more into a demand gen focused on a meeting management platform and driving meetings that drive pipeline. But that's what our customers are saying for some of the biggest companies in the world. Like, we don't even want to hear about leads.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
How how has that shifted how marketing is measured in the organization when, and this is something we struggle with, so it's relevant for me, like, when you're shifting from focusing on leads to like how marketing can help sales get those meetings, how are they shifting the KPIs for marketers to measure how successful they are at helping get those meetings? Instead of from like an acquisition, like,
Well, I can speak more to more of the offline marketing, live events and trade shows, corporate events, road shows, stuff like that. But what I see a lot is that the marketing team is tasked with driving inbound meetings and engagements, right? So it's all about driving content and engagement and experience to get people to click on a button and book a meeting. So while marketing is driving inbound, sales is doing outbound and trying to drive that stuff. Right.
I'm going to ask a follow-up to the follow-up.
Yeah.
In that approach, where sales is doing outbound, marketing is focused on inbound, do they take equal responsibility and ownership for the progression at the account level?
Yeah, both. It's got to be a connected thing, right? Because marketing is driving inbound to qualified inbound to meet with sales, right? Sales is reaching out and saying, come meet with us. But when they get there, we need marketing to drive experience, content, and connection to help them feel welcomed and a part of and want to be there, because nobody wants to be sold to, right? So it's got to be this combination of everybody's held accountable to drive connection and engagement that turns into meetings that drives pipeline.
Is that like a multi-touch attribution model that you're using?
It can be, but you can also look at pipeline created or advanced. Like, we've been digitally talking to them for 6 months. And as a result of being at the event face-to-face, we're able to advance this. Or we weren't talking to them. They won't answer our calls. They won't answer our emails, but we met them face-to-face at an event, and that helped create something, right? And I don't know, I think a lot more how this applies to digital, but from the offline perspective, that's kind of the model.
Got it.
I can reinforce that a little bit, because at my last company, something that we did that was radical at the time was we actually got rid of lead scoring. And a lot of our marketers were just like, what do I do? So we decided the only thing that was going to qualify as a marketing qualified lead was going to be a hand raiser, meaning they either said, filled out a forum, or they're at an event or on a webinar and said, I want to meet with sales directly, or they literally scheduled with an auto scheduler. And when we did that, we said, okay, your goal is to create meetings and create pipeline, and basically we don't care about anything else. And like, initially they freaked out. They're like, what do I do? How am I measured for success? And eventually they got on board. And what it did, it actually naturally kind of aligned our marketing sales teams a little bit. Like, we found our field marketers were all of a sudden like meeting with their regional directors for the sales. And they're like, oh, okay, like, what types of events would be able to drive more hand raisers and get more meetings for you guys?
Amazing how that happens, right?
It's amazing what happens when you have the same goal and you align to it. So I
And
think,
then sales gets the buy-in, right?
Exactly,
Oh, marketing's not shit leads,
Mhm.
right? They help drive these connections and engagement that really matters.
I know we have 7 questions, but can I ask a follow-up to the follow-up to all this? So this is, I think it's very relevant. I would love to hear opinions on this. So both marketing and sales are being driven to be more efficient and dabbling with AI. Right? Some have adopted it more. I don't think any of us really know what we're doing with it, but I think people are trying different things. So in the context of the question, I would love to hear, from anyone who's willing to put themselves out there. How are you using AI, or how have you started testing AI to run marketing more efficiently without compromising the effectiveness?
I have an interesting perspective on this, which is like efficiency to me was a different definition, which is like how efficiently from an economic standpoint can I get to the definition of a qualified lead? And so when I was at Google, we did a ton of content syndication, like tons of it. And so we had tons of leads coming in, very, very cold. And at one point I was obsessed with paying all of the vendors to increase the quality. And what I didn't realize was like the cost per quality at the vendor level was very expensive, where I could just figure out essentially the cheapest lead that I could get that met a quality threshold. And then I'd get my quality through Integrate, right? And so I had that enrichment layer. And when you looked at the cost, it was like, wow, the end result is actually cheaper when I break it down that way versus like trying to get it all in one shot. So with AI, now I actually think that becomes a lot cheaper. Like you can, the plethora of tools that are out there that, you can just directly hook into an API and you can get almost any data point you can think of that's publicly available for fractions of a penny is like crazy to me. So it's like, why wouldn't anybody have a strategy of just maximize the size of your database and try to enrich it for as cheap as possible? And if you can do that, you now have a defensible moat for your company, right? You don't have to rent audiences. You own that audience and the data that goes with it. And yeah, like that's how publishers are built, right? It's how like New York Times, they build a huge audience. They don't go out and advertise their content, right? They have their own database. So
Is that something that you're implementing for your own company? I ask because I'm looking at doing a Zoom Info enrichment integration. I've used it at other companies. It's fine. I don't know from a compliance standpoint how much I really love Zoom Info.
yeah.
So I'm wondering like how well does AI work, and is it for some reason more compliant than the data brokers?
It's so for first part, yes, I would say it always depends because there's so many data companies now.
Yeah.
And like,
And they're all in class action lawsuits.
yes, yeah, well, that's true.
Every single one.
So you're gonna like your company, right? If they've been around for
Yeah.
15 years, maybe the risk appetite's not there.
Yeah.
But what I've found is the same data that comes out of Zoom Info, you can get from Lead Magic for
And it's free.
basically free, if not like less than a penny, but Zoom Info is going to charge you like $1 for that.
Yeah.
enrichment. So my philosophy is like, you got to test, get your account list, your TAM, and a portion of that, and run the enrichment with a couple of different vendors
Mhm.
and see what comes back. And if they tell you they won't do a test, then like, see you later. Because a
love
lot
that.
of them will.
Yeah.
Yeah, compliance is to me, a huge red flag in doing that, any kind of lists. I mean, especially sitting on the side that we sit on.
Oh my God, I'd love to hear that from a sales executive. My God, you're an angel.
Compliant, I mean, it's like you are dysfunctional without the compliance piece. And so then it throws a hole in get out to the masses, and it's cheap, yes, and you can bring in a lot of data, but the explicit compliance, US or outside of the US, and especially now in the US, I think there's 14 states that have.
Well, Adobe's regulations match the highest level.
Yep, so CCPA, and it's gonna be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You get to GDPR and you get to all that, you cannot use a database that is not explicitly opted in to receive, especially from a marketing standpoint,
Mhm.
messaging from your company, specifically. So
I'm evaluating a product right now called Ample Market.
Oh, okay.
And this is all to look at enrichment of the data and signaling, right? Because I think looking at all of this will allow us to know where to focus, right? And I think there's a lot of tools out there. I'm looking at this one because I want to be able to help the BDR team know where to focus,
Sure.
right? But when I talked to them and I got a demo, they were very focused on letting us know what the laws and rules were, and that they had that covered. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure my CTO would want to go deeper.
Did they have any
Right.
deliverability insights for you out of curiosity? Did they speak to that at all? That's
They
a
did, because I asked, although the reason why I brought it up is
Yeah.
because I had it in my mind that like Zoom Info had the best quality data, right? And they're claiming that they're a lot better and that they can show us those numbers.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me, right? Because everybody says, oh, I scraped this and I scraped that. And I'm like, okay, but if it's not real data, then I don't care. It's just gonna make more of a mess.
Well, there's also a distinction of owning your data and having explicit opt-in to the data that you have and then enriching it and being able to
Right.
augment your data versus acquiring it in a way that is not necessarily compliant with your
Yeah.
own business. So that's where I think the
And I
distinction
think that
is.
like gets left behind in a lot of this like go-to-market frenzy, which drives me nuts because yes, you can build these huge databases, you can sequence to the moon, but if they are not opted in, that's spam. Like you're
Correct.
creating a spam engine and there's a lot of companies are getting in trouble in that.
Right.
But I think you have to go to the point of like, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to create a database for outbound and you're thoughtfully doing that? And like, okay, that's one thing. But if you're gonna start marketing to them, your very first step has to be, how do we get them opted in?
For sure.
You know?
And you're gonna hurt your
And that-
underscores and then it's gonna all blow up in your face and you're gonna.
Ability thing is.
The way that we use that AI today to enrich the content for our customers that get leads, right, is that we have an AI agent that looks up into the current systems like Salesforce and Marketo and looks at their digital footprint and where have they spent time and have they opted in, right? Then let's go scrape LinkedIn and other places and bring in talking points and looking at all of that and bringing it in and making a summary, right? To help me understand more about this lead, right? Or prospect or current customer even.
I think where AI can be really helpful from an efficiency perspective is in sorting through all the data and making meaning from it. So like Demandbase has pipeline predict score, which it's machine learning, right? Behind it. Yeah. Like, so basically not relying on somebody actually having to like go through and do a complete analysis and like build a bespoke understanding of what works, like being able to look at all your historical data and understand where to focus, like to your point, Steve, too, like I think that's the issue. That's the big issue, right? Is like that all data points are not actionable. Only, it's really about the aggregate, which also goes back to like the value of history. But the other part of that issue is understanding that if you have very dirty data that is confusing that, or if you have massive gaps in data, that is also going to make it very hard to make meaning of the data. So like, there's a lot of possibility, but you have to be aware of what your database health is in order to like take action meaningfully on that insight.
Has anyone yet started building agents within your own systems to help you decipher your own data?
Absolutely.
Like a
Have to.
world where.
Because I go to events and I talk to a customer and I don't even know they're a customer, right? So like when I scan them, like I needed to go look up in my CRM and tell me more of what I already know, right? This is frustrating if we don't do that. So we implemented that recently because it's very frustrating if there's already data about this person in my systems, but I don't have easy access to it, right?
Yeah, I
So
can't
you
imagine
use the
where it
agents.
goes.
Use the agents to go look for that data.
Like, I don't want to see a world where my agent's talking to your agent. Like, I want to talk to you, that it's frightening. I know that's not exactly the subject, but that scares me. And I'm on the tail end of my career and I watch my daughter, my children who are just starting out in their careers and they're talking about these things and thinking about it. And I think back 25, 30 years ago, we have fax machines, right? Like that's ancient now. You would never think of that in the world we live in today. But what is that going to be like? And it's moving so fast.
I know.
I know, a totally different subject, but it's top of mind.
Fax is still a required standard field in Salesforce, so. Okay.
Your sales force. That's funny. All right, shall we move on?
Something about fax, quick side note,
Yeah.
that like back in the day, apparently this was a thing where like you outbounded through fax machines, right? Like,
Oh.
you sent your pitch through the fax machine. And I was like, that would be brilliant. Why doesn't anybody do that? How you could,
Yeah.
they had this really creative visual and like brand system that comes through the fax machine. But the problem is I don't know if anyone at home has fax.
No,
machines.
oh my God,
Yeah.
not at all.
It would come through as an
I
email.
don't know, it seems like we
Some-
want to circle.
some as an
these days.
email,
No,
right.
just,
We're gonna circle back to it anyway.
I think healthcare might be the
Yeah,
only
do something
place
doctor.
holding on to fax for prescriptions. That might be it, but I think that's all been digitized now. I think that's definitely gone.
Yes. I think, so we have time for probably one more, before we want to head over to the venue.
Oh, wow.
I think it's been a great conversation and I'm really glad you all are contributing. Thank you so much. You don't know how many of these we've had where I'm like, you should, you're here, you should talk, because it's really awesome. So I think something that we've kind of touched on in various capacities through this conversation, maybe another place where I could see being injected into this process, but love to hear a little bit more about how everyone sees different platforms working together at scale, not like an integration here or there, but like what is the overarching scale that you're seeing in your MarTech ecosystem, and how are you using it? I think we were talking about hygiene and some of the issues there specifically, but like outdated job titles or people moving to different orgs. This person was a champion at the last company, but now they're at this company. How can we tap into that? So I would love to hear a little bit from the panelists on kind of how you're approaching this at your firms or on your teams.
I mean,
I think there's some LinkedIn capability around this that
there is.
I'm not sure totally, but I've had some features that said like for all the people, all of your contacts, like alert me as soon as possible if they've moved to a different company. But I don't know how that would integrate with the systems.
We have a few things. We have a former user program that we just started. So that is tracking users of AlphaSense who have moved to other companies. We still have Drift email, SiftRock, SalesLoft, I don't know, whatever it is now. We have that to maintain a lot of things. And actually that does a lot for us. It will kind of like invalidate email addresses of people who have moved on from their companies. So we won't continue to like send emails to them or spam them, because that will also hurt our sender stuff. We've done a lot of stuff to bring our sender reputation pretty high. We just had our business review with Adobe and they were like, this is actually really good. So
Nice.
that, and then we have a Clearbit webhook that runs anytime something comes in. And then Marketo as well. I think really working with the campaign owners and really understanding your channels and the vendors you're working with is kind of a great way to set up at scale, especially within Marketo. Guardrails against data that would be hard for sales to make revenue out of. And a recent example that we've done with this is now that we've moved to like an all-bound motion, we have a lot more marketing generated leads moving to a bigger pool of salespeople, which just inherently creates a little bit more chaos. But one of the things that we've been working on refining is the routing, and making sure that we are setting up things to route to the proper SDRs. And with the events channel specifically, one of the things that we've done is stamping region, since we're not always getting country back from vendors, which isn't great. But we're like, okay, if we know that this is an event happening in the US region, we'll at least make sure it gets to a US SDR. And then, if the person happens to be in Germany, and if we learn that later, then we'll have other systems in place to kind of reverse that and make sure that we do the proper things. So that has also, I think, helped a lot too.
Routing's a big deal, yeah.
It is. So there's Integrate is a layer to do all this. when leads are coming in top of funnel, right? But if your leads are already in your database, something like Integrate is not helping you to do that. But LinkedIn Sales Navigator did release, it's not great yet. I was one of their beta testers of this product, so it's good, but it's not great. And the dependencies is it has to be able to read back your data in Salesforce. It has to know your customers, so the data has to be clean in Salesforce as it's pulling it in to be able to ascertain if that human was previously associated with an account that was a customer and has then moved on to another. The other company that does this and does it really well is User Gems. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard of User Gems. We were a customer of User Gems for a long time. And then when Sales Navigator came out with this, it was just sort of made it redundant. I fought really hard for it to keep it because I think they do the best job at this. And they do write back to your systems as well. So if someone has moved on, it won't delete that old record, but it'll create a new record with the new information. I think
Links the two of us together.
yeah, I think it's really a wonderful tool. I think it's hard for them to sell because most organizations have some Sales Navigator license. And so if you have something that does that, and then you go, talk to your CFO, like you want to bring in this other tool, why do you need that? If this does that, they're not in the weeds of why it really matters.
Get focused. Like if I already had an advocate at a company and they went to another company, that's my low
Yeah.
hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this comes down to me. It's like a third party versus first party data
Sure.
question. So like to me, it depends on how you're sourcing your first party data. Like if you have a lot of signups where somebody fills out a form on a website and all they're giving you is like an email, it's a lot harder to trust the first party data because there's just going to be a lot of junk naturally that comes in there. If everything comes into your database is fully formed and you have high confidence that you're not getting a lot of junk, it's a lot easier to trust first party. But in most of the organizations I've worked for, you're getting a ton of junk in, and I think it forces you to kind of rely a bit more on third party data and force you to enrich and rely on like, okay, I have Enrichment telling me that like this person works at this company with this job title, first party data says otherwise. How do you weigh it? And I think usually I default to third party on that, just with how ubiquitous data has kind of become and with everybody and their mother being able to scrape LinkedIn at this point. So that's kind of my view, but it's, I think, a little dependent on how you're acquiring your first party data.
We could talk about that at happy hour. The
Okay.
tool scraping LinkedIn, that's a whole other subject. I have a lot of opinions on that.
I just had a follow-up question because it is, I mean, probably every marketing operations person has had the argument with their other marketers around how many fields you should have on your form and what are truly the core fields that are necessary. I've been having the discussion, well, we have progressive profiling. We have, all of the tracking pixels that make known users, have a great experience when they come to fill out another form with us. But to eradicate the issue of crappy first party data, like what kind of things have you all used? Like I know we have form rules in Marketo. We can do form validation preventative measures, but are there integrations you've done? Any tricky, like there's probably not a whole lot of CSS formatting that you could do to prevent that, but yeah, I'm trying to get creative.
I would say a lot comes down to what you want. What's the goal of the form? Like, is the form a hand raiser? I think usually people are more willing to give you more information if they're like, I want to talk to sales right now, because they want that phone number to actually go to them. Versus like if you're just downloading an ebook, like in my opinion, you don't need to ask for a lot more information. And if you ask for more, you're just kind of asking them to basically fill out junk because they're not going to want to do it properly anyway.
And then you probably get junk too. I mean,
Yes.
they're going to put
And I think
junk data in
is this
there.
a new contact or somebody we already have data on?
Exactly.
Because if you already have data on them, I would want that to auto populate what they don't need.
Oh yeah,
Because
that's enabled everywhere. And then we have Captcha. Did I say that right? Probably not. Thank you. Brain scrambling. Love that. Okay, that's a good point. Thank you.
I find sometimes in that discussion actually that the marketers that want more forms on the field are not confident enough like in their marketing, like
Yeah.
in their brand.
Oh, it's true.
In their value prop, like their messaging. I know we need all the data because they're so afraid that like this
Yeah.
person may never come back. Let's get everything
Well,
from
so
them. It's like
our problem is we have excess demand. And we have a not. It's only.
No one.
It was a demand capture problem, right? And, these guys that have done business by shaking hands in person for 115 years don't see the value, right, in the digital marketing. But we have so much demand that's not properly being captured. because it's not being segmented. I've got to clean up our lead routing. But to do that, we need more data and we need a lot of things. But, so I'm like, how do I get people? We do have the people that want to fill out the forms. So I'm like, okay, so how do I make sure that they're not going to fat finger something? And what kind of prompts can I put there so that I can make sure that they do get heard?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so Clay has kind of popularized this term of waterfalling, and I think other tools do it too. But like the concept to me, it seems smart. Like at the point of entry, like once it, or either if it hits your system or before, you run this like waterfall.
Yeah.
Which if your company's invested enough, you could waterfall like 3 or 4 data enrichment solutions, and then have a score that outputs at the end. So then you select. Like Zoom Info might have been really great at enriching that person, or Apollo is maybe better, or like it all depends on your ICP and all that. But
They overuse those 2 tools right now for other reasons that I don't love.
I'm sure. And I think you can. I've played around with a lot of the website de-anonymization tools as well. Wildly inaccurate. Like wildly inaccurate. Yeah, I mean, just that you will have somebody, and I tested this on myself. I went to someone's website and they said, Ashley Armenti was on the website, senior accountant at blah, blah, blah. And I go, that's my wife. She's a consultant. She hasn't been in the workforce in like 15 years. And so it's like, that's what's listed on the IP. And so I just think it's
Because you use
testing.
the whatever machine.
Yeah, I use that computer.
Right.
Yeah.
That messes up a lot of lead journey effort, I think.
Yeah. But the flip side is like, when it gets it right, that's pretty freaking cool, right?
Yeah.
Now you can create this really custom.
How do you measure the like, I wish there were a tool, maybe AI can do this, that validates the efficacy of different tracking pixels and providers.
I don't know. We used to do it manually. So like,
Testing is fun.
Yeah. We got like a data set from HGI that said that these companies had certain cloud spend, and then we put SDRs on it and said, you're going to call them and just ask if they spend in above a certain range of cloud. And it was very interesting. It was like 66% accurate, which actually wasn't bad. After we tested a few others.
I'm going to do this every time a regional marketer asks me for a new tool. Great, go test it yourself and then get back to me. Oh, that's wildly helpful. Thank you.
She can write that down. Good job.
I think we should probably think about heading over to the venue, but thank you all for coming and for the great discussion. Since we did record, this will be posted. Is it YouTube?
Yeah.
Posted on YouTube, so you can catch the recording there. And let's go have some food.
Come to Henry's. There's lots of food and open bar. And then we've got thanks to Zach's great ideas, we've got coffee for you, like coffee, bad coffee, local coffee, chapstick, and chocolate. Oh my.
Very Denver.
Good. Very Denver. That was, thank you to Zach, because my idea, which he did not like, was an umbrella. It was really cute. It was an umbrella. And underneath it had comments like, it's always sunny at Mug, Denver.
I know.
There's a Mug Seattle, I bet, right?
It was very cute. I'm going to save the idea for something else. But Max is like, well, only for 30 Denver. We really like the way fantastic. I'm like, gosh,
You'll still have sunshine, not a little rain.
listen.
Off week.
There should be more. You're gonna have so much coffee. You need to get a bean grinder though. Yeah. So much. You have one.
You was really so.
You got a lot.
Oh.
I got 30.
Movie. Yeah.
I got an umbrella with.
It was pretty.
Would you like us to tell cups? I had half of a shop.
There's we'll finish the shot. We're going to an open bar, but.
We do, and I have to drive a broken car, I think. I don't know. Maybe in a tow truck later.
He may be driving on your behalf.
Yes.
No, they can totally remotely disable it.
3 cups?
Don't worry. Don't worry.
No, I did a good job on
I
mine.
recently car shopped and I looked at those. It's like, okay, there's great like safety protocols, and I'm sure that companies
Up how to use the little key. We walked here from there.
I can, right, let's just when we go by,
Okay.
let's just look at what the model and stuff is, and we'll just do it.
Okay, thank you. You're gonna save me tonight. You're not gonna let me.
What did you say it was Avis?
Yeah.
Okay, Brad?
Yes.
You should probably just see if there's like a chat on that and be like, hey, I lost the fob. I can still drive it. Can you deactivate the fob? Just to make sure the call is
Post it.
Is the person there?
Yeah.
Their app is horrible. It's like the chat.
I've only used it. I haven't used it.
The chat,
Yeah, let's do a picture. Let's do right from the Adobe logo. Yeah. Yep. Oh, they want to do the bathroom run first before we go over?
Picture, bathroom, or under the wall.
Okay, tell me. You could wait, apparently.
Okay.